Today we're looking at Marvel's version of what the Birds of Prey would look like. Last week I did a video on DC's version of the A-Force. The Birds of Prey are not technically an all-female group. However, they are more known to have much more females to the group than they do males, to which point I do believe that at the end of the day, Birds of Prey is kind of more a female group than anything. Now, when I was looking at this DC team and finding ways to make it work within Marvel, there are times where this team is 3 people, 4 people, 5 people, and so on. There are always new current members, and there have been a lot of former members. So to streamline this, to make this a little bit easier, I decided to make 4 teams, all teams having 4 characters. Most of these teams will have a character, or maybe even a few characters whose presence is supposed to match the Batgirl, the Huntress, or the Black Canary of the team. So with that being said, let's get right into the first team. Team 1, I have Kate Bishop Hawkeye, Misty Knight, White Tiger, specifically Ava, and Sharon Carter. For Kate Bishop, she's smart, energetic, and skilled, of course, especially with a bow. She blends a connection between Batgirl and Huntress and adds her marksmanship, detective instincts, and leadership in the making. For Misty Knight, she's a seasoned vet with tons of experience, hand-to-hand combat, investigation skills as well to add to the team as an added bonus, and a bionic arm to give her enhanced strength or certain advantages this team might need. White Tiger, she adds to the street justice that this team will be dealing with, along with a small blend of mystical lore given her abilities and the persona of her character. She also brings in martial arts skills, arguably the best of the team, and some extra heightened strength to benefit the team as well. With Sharon Carter, she's a SHIELD-trained operative who understands the world of investigation and working on small-scale teams or personnel. Espionage is her expertise, and in high-pressure situations, ones that others on this team might not be used to, she can take the lead. When I look at the actual Birds of Prey, especially the ones that consist of Black Canary, Batgirl, and Huntress as the core 3, they always remind me of a team that is very well bonded. They work well together, but they take the job very seriously as well. This team I could see becoming very well bonded with one another, but also taking the job seriously. That's not to say that they can't emotionally be invested with one another on the field or during missions, but the mission is key and critical. Another reason why I think this team could probably work, at least from one character's perspective, is Misty Knight, because if I'm not mistaken, she has somewhat of a similar Birds of Prey-esque team in Marvel that she herself created. So right there, she has experience within a similar team. And I personally believe characters like Kate Bishop, or maybe even White Tiger, they would be characters that would 110% need to be involved in a Marvel's version of the Birds of Prey. Especially Kate Bishop, she absolutely fits that mold in look, character, personality. In certain aspects when making this team, I tried to connect them to the closest variation of what DC's Birds of Prey are. So Kate Bishop is that healthy blend of Batgirl and Huntress. Misty Knight, I think in this situation, she doesn't have the most connections to her, but she would fill in for that Black Canary role, if anything, mainly mentality and leadership. White Tiger, again, is that blend of Batgirl and Huntress as well, but Sharon Carter, I actually decided to throw her in this team as the Lady Blackhawk equivalent. Usually my Birds of Prey consists of 4 characters with an adding foundation of maybe 2 other characters in the future, but the starting 4 are Batgirl, Huntress, Black Canary, and Lady Blackhawk, and that's kind of what this team is supposed to look like. Now, Team 2. I have Black Cat, Echo, Elektra, and Hellcat. For Black Cat, she's an anti-hero, good at charm, stealth, and manipulation, but she still has a conscience, and she will fight for the greater good if need be. You can see Black Cat like a Catwoman. They're very interchangeable in a lot of ways, and over the years, like Catwoman, Black Cat has been seen to be more heroic than villainous. Echo is intensely disciplined and well-trained in tactical combat and planning. She would know the streets and their players better than anyone. Elektra can walk the line of hero and villain as well, but just on a much higher scale of Black Cat. Within that archetype, she can use her assassin skills to her advantage on a team of very skilled fighters to only make this team even better in that category. For Hellcat, she's a former celebrity and member of the Defenders. She can act as the team's moral compass. Being on an already small team like the Defenders gives her experience to be on a small team like this. She also adds her superhuman enhancements and abilities, which make this squad more capable. At first, when making this team, I was thinking of developing them into this anti-hero squad. You could make an example of maybe 3 of the 4 characters here who have been like that. Hellcat, I believe, has always been a hero, which to me, she would definitely be the most well-suited character here to be the leader, to ensure that if these other 3 characters are in that mental state of, I once was kind of a villain, now I'm going more good, she can keep them in line if that's the case. Looking at it from that perspective, why this team works is because, well, like I said with Echo, she'll know the players better than anybody. But Echo, Elektra, Black Cat, they have involved themselves with some of the biggest crime lords out there, some of the biggest threats to New York City, if you will. Who better to take down people in those operations than the people who literally know and understand how those operations actually work? In my opinion, this is a team that is more than capable to take on the role of the Birds of Prey, and with Hellcat as the leader, I think it's possible. For Team 3, I have Yelena Belova, the new Black Widow, Songbird, Spider-Woman, and Silver Sable. For Yelena, she's a trained assassin, but with added spunk and flair to her personality. She's an all-around combatant and tactician who can do everything you need or want them to do. She's basically a jack of all trades, which is always a good thing to have. Songbird, which I've actually used her in recent videos, she's a former villain turned hero with redemption being of key importance to her. She adds that sonic-based power to relate to Black Canary. For Spider-Woman, in a sense, another former villain to hero, going from Hydra to S.H.I.E.L.D. Whether or not she was ever that full-blown villain is a different conversation, but I just thought that was interesting. Her powers and abilities are much different than usual, adding a difference to the threats they could possibly be up against. And then for Silver Sable, the wild card of the team for sure, but she is a leader of her own organization, and even though she enjoys profits, she also focuses on duty and honor. She could act as a team coordinator and assist with procurement and resources if need be. I think this is just one of your classic teams of every single character potentially chasing a lead, and it all leads their roads to cross with one another. All of them just decide it's probably easier to get this job done if we just work together. And then what you would do throughout the story is they end up working so well together for their first time. They decide, hey, let's make a team and keep this going for as long as we possibly can. There might take some convincing, maybe from Black Widow or possibly Silver Sable, but convincing each other, I think, would be possible. If I was to connect these characters to maybe the counterparts of the 4-member team I use for my Birds of Prey, I think I would look at Black Widow here being the Huntress, Songbird being the Black Canary, only because of her sonic-based abilities. Spider-Woman is probably Batgirl, and Silver Sable, I would probably say, is Lady Blackhawk. That's definitely arguable. I'm sure some of you would see these characters in different aspects to make them the equivalent of another character, but that's kind of how I see this team working. And I think to keep this team stable, Marvel, Spider-Woman is probably the best leader here. And then for Team 4, I decided to go with an all-mutant squad. I went with X-23, Domino, Jubilee, and Psylocke. For X-23, she's trained to be a weapon, but she now seeks a purpose and belonging. With heightened senses and ultra aggression, she's the team's berserker. Domino, a wild card mercenary who uses luck and probability to her advantage, and now the team can use that as well as she is at their side. Jubilee, she's loyal and emotionally grounded, and she would be the heart of this team. Her powers and personality would bring the energy and possibly the morale that's needed here. And then for Psylocke, she's quiet, focused, and deadly. She's the stealth unit. She has extreme talent and knowledge in martial arts and psychic abilities. She's arguably the best combatant here, and probably the most powerful in terms of the abilities she has. I love mutants. I love the X-Men. They're probably my favorite part of the Marvel Universe. So making a mutant or X-Men based team is something I'm going to do if given the opportunity. There are so many mutant characters I think you could have used on this team and substituted some in and out. I was even considering someone like Kitty Pryde being on the team. However, when I looked at these 4 characters and again related them to the Birds of Prey team I kind of layered down on, this is probably the best and most appropriate look in how the team operates. Here you have key personalities, which gives this team life and gives us interest in knowing more about them and how they're going to work together. But the other key element here is having all of these characters basically being really good at fighting, which is one of the biggest things that the Birds of Prey are. They're really great fighters. With this team as well, just because they're all mutants, it doesn't mean that they only have to be locked down to mutant threats. They could face up against anyone and anything that they need to face up against, because anything could be a priority. So there you go. Those are my 4 teams of what Marvel's Birds of Prey could look like. But as per usual, before we end the video, I'm going to give you my personal favorite team. Personally, when I look at every single one of these teams, Team 1 is the team I think Marvel would actually make. Team 2, I think, has the most potential. Team 3 could be one of the more fun ones to see. And Team 4 might have some of the most interesting characters to audiences and would probably have some of the best stories. That's why personally for me, I gotta go with Team 2 and Team 4 as my favorites. Team 2 has a very good lineup with popular characters like Elektra and Black Cat, and they are also going to be thrown right into the types of storylines that the Birds of Prey already deal with. So this team in that aspect will be very familiar. For Team 4, as I said, I'm a sucker for mutants. I like X-Men characters. I like X-23. Psylocke has always been one of my underrated favorites, and I do believe that being mutants, usually that area of Marvel, always has some of the best stories, and I could only imagine, given the right writer, this team would be going through some of those best stories. But there are my 4 teams, guys, so you now let me know in the comments below what your favorite team of my 4 is, and what your personal Birds of Prey would look like if they existed in the Marvel Universe. That is all I have for you on this video, everyone. I do hope you all enjoyed it, and until the next time, I will talk to you all very soon.